Heads up, because you are in the Hoodwood. I'm the Black Bandit KJ Green, welcoming you to Sports from the Hoodwood for April 5th, 2019. Coming up this week, 4 on the floor in Minneapolis. We got 3 outsiders and a blue blood bum rushing the Twin Cities for the Final Four. Bron shuts it down. Could this be the start of an LA shakeup? Who I think the team to beat in Major League Baseball be this year. All that, Phat Dap Head Slap, and a plethora of opinions and info in this back-added edition of Sports from the Hoodwood. Fasten your seatbelts and let's go.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
Greetings from the Hoodwood, where Hoodwood residents like Phil French Fry and his lovely daughter Grace, who just turned 16 a couple of weeks ago, are gearing up for not only the upcoming baseball season, but the Final Four, which I'm still hanging on to the vestiges of the flickering embers of the dying basketball season. I'm your man KJ Green, welcoming you back, and before we get started, I want to issue some apologies for some technical difficulties which preempted the presentation of the show last week. I think microphones sometimes can be some of the most evilest things in the world, but being a computer guy, I had to fix them, and they have been fixed, and they have been cleared. So going forward, I hope to present a new show to you updated each week. Now let's get started with the Final Four. From 68 teams that were selected on St. Patrick's Day to now 4 left standing on their way to Minneapolis. Auburn, Michigan State, Virginia, and Texas Tech have conquered their respective regions and are the 2019 Final Four. Now, of the teams, Sparty is an old hand at this. This is their 10th Final Four in school history and 8th in the Tom Izzo era. And this is being their first since 2015. Now, Virginia hasn't been to the Final Four since 1984, and that was after Ralph Sampson left to make his way in the pros. And this is only their 3rd Final Four in school history. Now, Auburn and Texas Tech are making their very first Final Fours. The Red Raiders being turned away just last year, losing in the Elite Eight. And Auburn making its first Final Four appearance, and it's its deepest run that they've gotten to the tourney since 1986. And a lot of people like to think that the Auburn Tigers got deep in the tournament with Charles Barkley, but ironically, they only made the tournament one time with the Chuckster at playing in Auburn, Alabama. Now, the way the brackets are set up, there will be a first-time finalist. Auburn and Virginia face one another in the first national semifinal Saturday, while Michigan State and Texas Tech face off in the nightcap. Since Auburn and Virginia have never made the national championship, one of those two teams, whoever wins that game, will make its first foray on the final Monday of the season. The press just seem annoyed that there's only one number 1 seed, and that being Virginia, and that the big name schools like Duke or North Carolina or Kansas or some glamour team from the West Coast are not here. Now, when Duke lost to Michigan State, you could just hear all of the press crying that they weren't going to be able to have Zion Williamson in the Final Four. Now, make no mistake, Duke was a great team, Zion Williamson a great player, but Duke was fatally flawed. They could not shoot the threes, and when they found a team that could defend them and keep Zion Williamson from wreaking havoc, Duke was able to be beat. And the thing I don't understand is down the stretch why R.J. Barrett was taking so many shots. Why did Zion Williamson only take 1 shot in the last 520? Seemed to be the last 520 of his college career. But why did he shoot only once and miss the only shot he took in the last 5 minutes of the game? If he is supposed to be the all that player of the year, undisputed, unquestioned number one pick in the NBA draft for next year. Why was he not able to touch the ball? Why was he not taking shots? That will be one of the last great mysteries of the basketball season. Now, all four teams that are in the Final Four have Duke in common. All with the exception of Michigan State last Sunday took a loss from the Blue Devils this season. Now, looking at each of the four teams, Auburn is the Midwest Regional champ as a 5 seed, and our high-powered team that, despite the loss of Chuma Okeke, the Tigers did manage to make the Final Four. Okeke losing, the Tigers losing Okeke in the regional semifinal against North Carolina to a torn ACL. Now, Auburn beat, in order, Kansas, North Carolina, and Kentucky in that order to get to the Final Four. Do you know the only team that has pulled that hat trick off was the Arizona Wildcats in 1997 when they won the national championship, but they beat North Carolina and Kentucky on consecutive games in the Final Four in Indianapolis. I know, I was there. They are the only team to have beaten 3 number 1 seeds in a single NCAA tournament. Now, Auburn plays at a fast pace and will bully you on the board. Now, I've never been much of a Bruce Pearl fan, and to be honest, I gave Auburn grief after they struggled to beat New Mexico State in the first round. Now, New Mexico State had 4 chances to knock off Auburn, and they failed to do so. Auburn was the only team to escape the 5-12 hatchet job because all the other 12 seeds in the first round advanced. Now, the Tigers live on a hectic, aggressive defense that forces turnovers, and they lead the nation in defensive turnover percentage. But if they're facing a team that can handle pressure or that is patient on offense, they struggle. Now, West Regional champ Texas Tech is making its deepest run in the NCAA, as I mentioned before. They were 3rd seed, proving that last year's run wasn't just fueled by Zaire Smith. The Red Raiders use pinpoint shooting of Jarrett Culver, who looks like a lock to be a lottery pick himself. They're a strong defensive team. They force numerous turnovers, but they are super weak on the boards. When your leading rebounder is a 6'6" wing in Culver, you have an issue. Now, that's going to be a real big problem against a rugged team like Michigan State, who crashed the boards heavily. Speaking of the East Regional champs, the Spartans are a veteran team led by Cassius Winston. This Spartan team has experience and is fairly deep as well. Wily veteran coach Tom Izzo has experience at all points, and though Nick Ward is coming back slowly from injury, his presence will help Sparty greatly on the boards. The only problem with Michigan State is they have a tendency to kind of go to sleep at the switch sometimes. They build up big leads and fall asleep, letting otherwise lesser teams get back in the games. Michigan State can also rally big from numerous deficits and have done so numerous times in the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament. Finally, there's the lone top seed left, Virginia. Last year, the number 1 seed, the Cavs suffered a historically catastrophic loss to Maryland-Baltimore County. They not only got beat by a 16 seed, they got routed by a 16 seed. A 74-54 score should have been number 1 over number 16, but instead it was the other way around. But Virginia took that loss and used it as fuel for a deep tourney run. The Cavaliers are 33-3. Their 3 losses, twice to Duke, once to Florida State. This team came back stronger, and aside from being pushed hard in the regional final by Purdue, they roared through the South bracket. Now, watching the Cavaliers can be painful at times. I mean, they're not glamorous. They pass. They will often pass up one shot to make sure another teammate gets an open look. And they play rugged strangulation defense. They play slow, deliberate, and purposeful. Now, the aesthetics might be ungainly, but they grind out wins and pound opponents into submission. They have this out-of-the-world range. They can shoot well from 3, but their only weakness is their snoozer pace. And if that range doesn't hook up right, they struggle to put up offensive numbers. That could be a problem. The only team outside of Duke or Florida State has beaten them at that game, though. So if a team can be patient enough to rock fight with Virginia, they may have a chance. Now, how does the semifinals look? That Virginia-Auburn game is a clash of styles. And as much as I like Auburn's offensive style and pace, Virginia will slow the game down. Virginia will make Auburn impatient and make them force up bad shots. The Cavs simply don't make the kind of mistakes that Auburn is going to try to force. I think the Cavs make their first final in school history. Now, Texas Tech is a rugged team in their own right, and the game with Michigan State will be an interesting one. But they struggle against veteran teams, and this Spartan squad is veteran and experienced. They've been in tough games before, and especially a team with a strong floor general like the aforementioned Cassius Winston will make Texas Tech struggle. I think the Spartans get to the final. Now, who do I think in my projected final wins? Michigan State and Virginia. As much as the redemption story for the Cavs would be the ultimate happy ending, I think the veteran Spartans make the Cavs go faster than they want and pull away late for a win in Tom Izzo's second title in school history. In his coaching history, I should say, not school history. That'll be their third school title. So, there you have it for the Final Four. We will take our first timeout of the day, come back, and look at the final epitaph of the 2018-19 Late Show and all the changes that could be coming down the pike in La La Land. Sports from the Hoodwood rolls on after this.
You're tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for no-nonsense commentary, insight, and opinions on the world of sports. Here now live in living color, black by popular demand. Your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood. My name is KJ Green, and let's just go ahead and start the post-mortem on the farce of a team that is the Los Angeles Lakers. Yes, I know, all the pundits were running around saying with LeBron James, the Lakers will be a dominant team in the West, and they'll win 50 games, and they'll push the Warriors hard, and no. The Lakers are currently 11th in the Western Conference, tied for 11th with a 35-43 record. They've already been formally eliminated from the playoffs. The 8 teams in the Western Conference have already been set. And the Lakers aren't one of them. And Luke Walton, head coach, dead man walking. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? Of the head coach of the Lakers has decided he's going to just go ahead and shut LeBron down so he can fully recover from his lingering groin injury. And the Lakers are just more or less just sleepwalking to the finish. Now, Luke Walton, as capable of a coach as he may appear to be, I think he was handed an absolute mess with the Los Angeles Lakers, and LeBron James did not want him as coach. That is pretty obvious. That being said, Luke Walton's dead man walking. I said it before, and I'll say it again. The Lakers simply are not going to have a $150 million investment in LeBron James be unhappy with his coach. LeBron James wants another coach, whether it be Brian Shaw, Juwan Howard, Mike Brown. There's a lot of rumors. That'd be interesting. Mike Brown coming back to coach the Lakers after being sent out in 2012 by Kobe Bryant, who really didn't like Mike Brown and wanted him gone. He was gone after a season and 5 games. But nevertheless, the Lakers have way too many holes in it to be a solid contender, even with LeBron. But you also have to consider that LeBron is 34 years old. He will turn 35 about a third of the way into the 1920 season. and the time is basically running out on the Lakers, and a window which I never thought was really open is closing very, very fast on having LeBron at the peak of his powers and to try to be a contender. Now, the Lakers are going to be vastly different come next season. Many people are thinking that players like Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis making a push to get traded or in some sort of machinations pushed to the Lakers. But I don't see that happening. I mean, the Lakers are basically a mess. They have no real point guard. They have no real established consistent shooters. Their offensive situation's a mess. Their defensive schematics are horrid. They are very, very leaky. And if you hand it to, say, a first-time coach like a Juwan Howard, who I think may be very capable, but if you throw him into that mess, it's going to be like the inmates that are running the asylum. Now, the Lakers haven't made the playoffs in which will now be 6 years. That is the longest the NBA playoffs have been without the Lakers ever. I'm not saying in 40 years or 50 years or whatever. I'm saying ever. The LA Lakers have been in the playoffs consistently and they only had a stretch of 2 or 3 years where they missed the playoffs. In the Kareem era, I think his first year he was there, they missed the playoffs, and I think they missed the playoffs another time before Magic got there. But the Lakers not playing past April 15th is almost, I don't know, expected now. The Lakers aren't a good team, and they won't be a good team as long as they have the current structures in place. Rob Pelinka is not liked by other general managers and other personnel, and teams are hesitant to make any trades or any kind of deals with the Lakers. Magic Johnson, as the public face of the franchise, is capable, is liked, but as long as Rob Pelinka is still there, many people don't want to do deals with the Lakers, even with Magic as an intermediary. And it's sad. Such a great, proud franchise, one of the NBA's longtime glamour franchises, playing as bad as their counterpart on the East Coast, New York Knicks. But that's another story for another day. I said at the beginning of the season, the West was way too deep for LeBron himself to make an impact to boost the Lakers enough to get into playoff contention. And I got laughed at. I got called a hater. That's okay, though. All 8 spots in the West have already been claimed, and all the teams will have at least 45 wins. As I said on an earlier edition in the Hoodwood, 50 wins of Coconut Smile might get you a 5 seed. Might. The Portland Trailblazers just won their 50th game Wednesday night. They are right now sitting in the 4 slot. Now, LeBron and his shucking and jiving are not going to get any better. The Lakers will have to have more pieces than an aging LeBron to make a run. And I mentioned before, could Kawhi Leonard go to the Lakers? Possibly. Could Anthony Davis force a trade that would get him sent to the Lakers or join the Lakers after the 1920 season as a free agent? That's a possibility. Either way, LeBron's going to be older and the window's going to be closing fast. Now, I hear those that say the injury bug hurt the Lakers, but no one will readily admit that the West was deeper and stronger than people gave it credit for, and that simply having LeBron show up. And LeBron had a solid season, averaging 28, 8, and 8, but no one was willing to admit that having LeBron, just LeBron, was not going to make that much of a difference. The Lakers were woefully undermanned and outgunned. Besides the redoubtable James, name another reliable scorer that they have. They have no true point guard. They have no big man to clog up the paint. I know big men don't play back to the basket like they used to, but having someone who's reliable with the ball and someone who's a reliable second option is crucial for all contending teams. Go up and down the standings in the NBA today. All the teams that are in contention, all the teams that are pushing hard for playoff spots or playoff positioning, I should say, they have more than one reliable scorer, more than one scoring option. The Lakers don't have that. The Lakers haven't had that. You think Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Rajon Rondo, you think any of those three players are going to be that much of a concern? The Lakers traded away D'Angelo Russell. Look what he's doing for Brooklyn. Don't you think the Lakers wish they could have had D'Angelo Russell to play off of LeBron James? The Lakers have done this to themselves. They've got nobody to blame but themselves for their 35-43 record, even with LeBron James being out a good deal of the time. This team was flawed from the beginning, and it's not going to get better, Laker fan, not unless a blockbuster deal gets made that's going to bring a number of players to LA. And a lot of teams in the NBA are not going to pull that trigger on any kind of trade. They're not going to help the Lakers. And the Lakers are basically a team that's flawed and a team that's in trouble, especially with an aging LeBron James, because he can't keep this up. He can't keep this manic pace up. Father Time is undefeated, and LeBron James is figuring that out real fast. We will take a time out, and we will come back and talk about football, the demise of the AAF. Did the NFL have something to do with this? And what coaches really need to be looking over their shoulder come 2019 season? If they don't put up, they're going to get put out. Sports from the Hoodwood rolls on after this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's premier location for no-nonsense commentary, insight, and opinion on the world of sports. Here now, the man with 100% certified fresh take, your host, KJ Green.
Once again, you are back in the Hoodwood. I'm KJ Green, and now let's look at the AAF, the Alliance of American Football, or I should say the demise of that first-year league. League owner Tom Dundon suspended operations Tuesday after 8 weeks of games, 2 weeks left in the season, and before any playoff games. They just shut the league down. Now, the AAF was trying to make themselves into a developmental league for the NFL, but after Dundon's initial $250 million pledge after the league's first week, in which the AAF was already rumored to be hemorrhaging money, Dundon made the announcement earlier this week to shut the league down. Now, the NFL has said little about the AAF, and they didn't consider it a rival or anything, but the question remains, did the NFL quietly force the AAF out of business? Now, they did have a number of radical rule changes so that they were dissimilar to the NFL, prohibiting extra points. There was no kicked extra points. You had to go for two on after every touchdown. There was a lot more hitting allowed in this league, with things that would have definitely gotten flags or players ejected. There were a lot more, the players will have a little bit more freedom to make hits. Now, the play in itself was, I don't want to say ragged, but it was like what you expect out of, say, a preseason game. But the players, there were enough decent quality players, and you're going to tell me that there aren't enough players or enough interest in a league to make a go of it. And they weren't playing in the fall, they were playing in the spring. And many people said, well, there's too much saturation of football and people are getting, fatigued from football. If people are getting fatigued from football, why is there every day on ESPN, on Fox Sports, on CBS Sports Network, on NBC Sports Network, on all these different sports channels, why is there always a debate about football? Why is NFL Network right now having debates on players, draft choices, and other sundry things going on about the league? Their interest in football is pretty much a year-round business. The NFL has saturated itself so much that football and the discussion of football isn't just from, say, August to January, but year-round. The draft is in 3 weeks, and there is interest in the game. And with the AAF, while it still was working its kinks out, looked to be a well put together, well organized, conceptual league. And then they just pulled the plug on it. I didn't understand that. I really didn't. Now, shifting gears in the NFL, speaking of, say, there are certain coaches that are on the hot seat already before the draft, before free agency has been done, for basically their coaching lives. Head of the list is Pittsburgh's Mike Tomlin, who has been head coach of the Steelers since 2006. Now, I like Mike Tomlin. Even though I'm no Steelers fan, I like Mike Tomlin. I always have liked Mike Tomlin. We're the same age. We both have a commonality in the University of Cincinnati. He coached for the University of Cincinnati in the late 90s. He also coached in Minnesota. And I thought should have been a prime candidate for their head coaching position before the Steelers snapped him up. But with the continuing controversy with the trade of Antonio Brown, with the release of Le'Veon Bell, who was then acquired by the New York Jets, the question of the locker room atmosphere and the leadership of Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger is put into question. If the Steelers, in a vastly improved AFC North, are unable to return to the playoffs, because remember the Steelers missed playoffs, and the Steelers are not I should say their fans and their front office administration are not want for long droughts of playoff absenteeism. If the Steelers cannot return to the playoffs, Mike Tomlin might be out of a job. And this isn't a franchise that changes coaches arbitrarily. Keep in mind, in the last 50 years, the Steelers have had 3 coaches. 3. There are some franchises that have had 3 coaches in the past decade. Steelers have had 3 coaches. Chuck Noll was from 1969 to 1992. Bill Cowher from 92 to 05 after he retired after Super Bowl 40. And Mike Tomlin since 2006. The Steelers don't change coaches arbitrarily. They don't change them on a whim. There are some teams that run coaches in and out. People like to talk about the teams who are a model of stability, but they have changed coaches. The Cowboys have had 3 coaches in the interim time that the the Steelers have had one Mike Tomlin. But with the seemingly poisonous culture that is been bandied about in Pittsburgh, many people wonder if Tomlin needs to win the division, needs to make a deep playoff run to keep his job safe. And getting out of the AFC North is not going to be easy. The vastly improved Cleveland Browns are no longer the easy 2-win pushover that the Steelers have relied on for the better part of 15 years. I should say for the better part of 20 years. The Ravens have made some improvements, have shuffled around. Lamar Jackson looks to be the incumbent quarterback now that Joe Flacco has been traded away to Denver. The Bengals, I don't know. The Bengals are just the Bengals. Well, the Bengals may end up being the way the Browns used to be, the punching bag of the division. But the Steelers cannot count on instant show up and dominance in the AFC North. And for that in itself, Mike Tomlin may be very well on the hot seat. One other thought, I also came across my desk about Russell Wilson demanding a contract extension, reworking. He's in the last year of his 4-year deal. And he wants this deal to be done by April 15th. It is, as I'm taping the show, April 4th. He really expects someone to rework a full deal to make him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL to be done in 10 days. This makes absolutely no sense. Russell Wilson is the face of that franchise and has been the face of the Seattle Seahawks for a number of years. He is one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. But this whole situation with his contract is going to get messy, and it's going to make it for a messy situation in Seattle. And then, of course, the ripple effect will be undoubtedly seen by one Dak Prescott. Speaking of Dallas, I honestly think Jason Garrett saved his job by winning the division. I think had the Cowboys not won the division, Jason Garrett would be among the other coaches who were looking for jobs. But I still think Jason Garrett will still be on the hot seat. Now the pressure isn't just win the division, but now make a deep run. The Cowboys haven't been in the Super Bowl in 23 years. And Jason Garrett has been dodging bullets left and right to stay as head coach in Dallas. I honestly think if he does not win the division, if the Cowboys don't win at least one or more playoff games, that Jerry Jones will finally grow weary and try to call a young head coach. Lincoln Riley, possibly out of Oklahoma. Who knows? We will take another timeout, come back with a look at Major League Baseball. And, of course, we have some quick hits and the Phat Dap Head Slap on the horizon. Sports Hoodwood chugs on after this.
You're tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest insight and opinion on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's the man of the hour, After Hours. Your host, KJ Green.
Rounding third and headed for home in the Hoodwood. I know I said that I was going to come back with a Major League Baseball preview. I said that as the show opened, but I wanted to make sure I got more information and statistics together and take a look at the first 2 weeks of Major League Baseball before I started calling who I thought was power brokers and teams to watch. I'll decide. Next week, we'll do a programming note, and after we do the Final Four reviews of both men's and women's, we'll take a more in-depth look at Major League Baseball as well as an NBA and NHL playoff preview, so there'll be a lot of stuff to cover and a lot of ground. But I want to make sure that I gave proper time and proper research on Major League Baseball before I delved into it. I had some stuff that I need to revise and some stuff I need to work on as well to make it more informational and more opinionated as well. So you're going to look for that next week in the Hoodwood. So before we get to the Phat Dap Head Slap, let's go to a few quick hits. Now, you thought I was going to go a week without giving shouts to my alma mater, the University of Cincinnati. Fooled you. The University of Cincinnati's club hockey team advanced to the Division II Frozen Four. Now, their club hockey team is hoping to move up to Division I here soon, but they have made their first Final Four in school history in ice hockey. They lost to Florida Gulf Coast in the Division II semis, but keep your eye on the University of Cincinnati. They may very well replace St. Cloud State as my favorite college hockey team, and I'm just so disappointed that my favorite D1 hockey team, St. Cloud State, was upset in the first round by American International. But the Frozen Four is set for Buffalo, as Denver, University of Massachusetts, Providence, and Minnesota Duluth are the final teams that are left standing to go at it for the national championship. I'll cover those that as well in depth next week. You have the final four teams, I should say final four, they call them the Frozen Four, for D1 ice hockey in the collegiate ranks. Speaking of the Final Four, you can't forget the ladies. First time Oregon is the only newbie of the bunch that is headed to Tampa Bay this coming weekend. They'll take on Baylor in the first game on Friday. And in the second semifinal, it's a battle of old-timers between Notre Dame, who was a defending national champion, who won on a buzzer beater last year. And they face perennial national semifinalist UConn, who is making their 12th straight Final Four. Go figure. Any of these teams can win it all, but my money is still on the Mafia Dons, Army Emma, and the UConn Huskies to win the national title. Now, it's a classy move by Russell Westbrook on Tuesday. After his 20-point, 20-rebound, 21-assist night for the Thunder, he dedicated his effort to the late Nipsey Hussle, the rapper, entrepreneur, and social activist who was essentially gunned down this past weekend. Hussle was from Westbrook's old hood in Crenshaw in L.A., and the two were very close. Westbrook's 2020 was only the second occurrence of that statistical feat. Only Wilt Chamberlain had done it before. Now, in the Phat Dap and Head Slap, the Phat Dap goes to Fran Bellaby, who became the second female to win the High School Powerade Jam Fest dunk contest. She nailed 3 dunks that were scored 50s, including jumping over 2 people to make a dunk. And you don't see females win dunk contests, but you got to give it to the young lady who won it with style. Here's to you, Fran, for putting the boys on blast. Now, the head slap goes to the Phoenix Suns, who wasted 50-point outputs by Devin Booker last week. Devin Booker scored 59 and 50 in back-to-back games, and the Suns lost them both. Even worse, Devin Booker has been shut down by the Suns after turning his ankle on Wednesday night, and he will miss their final 3 games. Doesn't really matter that much. The Suns are 18 and 61. Try as he might, Booker just can't do it all. And the Suns are hoping they may be able to pair him with Zion Williamson or R.J. Barrett next year. That'd be interesting. And without much further ado, let's go ahead and wrap up the show with the final word from the Wood. 2 legendary players in their respective sports called it a career last week. And the countdown will begin to their calls to Cooperstown and Canton, respectively. Ichiro Suzuki and Rob Gronkowski both announced their retirements within the last few days. And their respective sports, will miss their presence. Now, Ichiro Suzuki was a heavily hyped player who had dominated the Nippon Professional League in Japan in the 90s. He was playing with Oryx Blue Wave and batted .353 with almost 1,300 hits in 9 seasons as one of the most storied young hitters in Japan. Ichiro won 3 MVP awards and 7 Japanese Gold Gloves, but incredibly, didn't play much of his first 2 seasons because his manager didn't like his swing and wanted him to change it. After a managerial change, Ichiro played every day and set a Nippon Professional Baseball single-season record with 210 hits. This was only in a 130-game season, keep in mind. Now, this record has since been broken, but Ichiro set the standard for hitting in Japan in the 90s. After posting for MLB teams after the 2000 season, Ichiro signed with the Seattle Mariners. After sending a letter to Randy Johnson promising not to bring shame to uniform number 51, remember the big unit wore that number before being traded to Houston, he made his debut with Seattle, and I will admit, like a lot of supposed baseball experts, had a lot of doubt that he would play decent, much less excel. I'm just going to say this now. I was wrong. Ichiro banged out a rookie record, 242 hits. Now, many people said he wasn't a rookie because he had played 9 years in Japan, but for Major League Baseball's sake, argument, he was a rookie in their sense. So the 242 hits, impressive in any season, was doubly impressive for a player facing Major League pitching for the first time. Ichiro also batted .350, not only winning Rookie of the Year, something I still disputed because he was no rookie, but rightly winning the 2001 MVP, being the catalyst to a Seattle team that won 116 games. But the thing about Ichiro was he was a hitting machine. He had 200 more hits in his first 10 Major League Baseball seasons and has the most hits of any professional baseball player, period. Anyone who has professionally played baseball, he has over 4,300 hits. But not only was Ichiro a great player and student of the game, but he was extremely reverential to the players who had preceded him. After setting the single-season hits record with 262, that's a record that's not going to be broken ever. He visited the grave of George Sisler in St. Louis, George Sisler being the man whose record he had broke. Not only that, he was also a solid defensive player. Players learn real fast not to run on Ichiro lest they get cut down by his strong arm in right field. Ichiro was an extremely humble and extremely private player, but he was revered and respected by all he played with and played against. He played his final 2 professional games in the country where it all started, in Japan. And though he didn't get a hit, he did go out as a classy ambassador of the game. Now in football, tight end Rob Gronkowski decided to hang it up at the relatively young football age of 29. The 9-year vet has numerous Patriot records for receptions by a tight end, touchdowns, and yardage. Fleet of foot and sure of hand, Gronk was a fun-loving, gregarious player who was a fan favorite. His rambunctious spikes in the end zone after frequent touchdown passes from Tom Brady made him a Pat fan favorite. He played hard, and though he was off injured, never cheated the game. He played hard and at the top of his game for as long as he could. He was a portrait of hard playing on and off the field. His numerous and frequent pictures of him partying hard after wins were legendary, but it never took away from his top play on the field. His antics never came across as crass or immature, just someone that looked like he was having a good time at all times. Gronk will be missed by one and all. And that is the final word from the Wood. With the music coming up in the background, you know that means your time in the Hoodwood is just about done, and I thank you for your visit this week. Now, the email for the show is kjgreen@blackbanditproductions.com. You can send me emails on show topics, questions. If you have comments, praise or criticism. I read every email and try to respond as quickly as possible. You can catch this podcast on a number of sites, including iTunes and Google Play. The show site itself is hoodwoodsports.podbean.com, which has previous shows and will be updated soon with other links. I'm also on Facebook at Black Bandit Productions and Enterprises. I'm also on Twitter as well at KJGreen20 and KJGreenVB, as well as YouTube. Next week we will look at the Final Fours from the women and men, the pros and the four, as well as MLB play preview and preview of the NHL and NBA playoffs. I will have a cornucopia of issues and items to discuss next week, so we want to be back here in the Hoodwood. That is that. From the Hoodwood, fellow sports fans, until next time out, I'm KJ Green.
Sports from the Hoodwood
Is a Black Bandit Productions and Enterprises presentation
of a 551 audio and film